Jantung yang selanjutnya akan memompa darah bersih ini melewati katup aorta masuk ke dalam aorta, dan darah kaya akan oksigen ini disirkulasikan ke seluruh tubuh kecuali paru-paru. Seperti yang disebutkan sebelumnya, pada jantung terdapat beberapa katup yang diantaranya katup tricuspidalis, katup bicuspidalis atau mitral, katup pulmone, dan katup aorta. Katup-katup tersebut membuka dan menutup guna mengatur dan mendorong darah dalam jantung. Jantung berdenyut melakukan kontraksi dan relaksasi. Pada saat berkontraksi disebut dengan sistol, dan pada saat relaksasi disebut dengan diastol. Pada saat sistol, jantung berkontraksi dan memompa darah keluar dari jantung, yaitu dari ventrikel kanan ke paru-paru dan ventrikel kiri ke seluruh tubuh. Pada saat diastol, ruang jantung mengendur dan terisi darah. Dan semua proses itu akan terus terjadi secara terus-menerus tanpa henti, selama manusia itu masih hidup.
The human heart has 4 chambers. The 2 upper chambers are the atria, and the 2 lower chambers are the ventricles. The interatrial septum separates the 2 atria, and the interventricular septum is the partition between the 2 ventricles. The right atrium and right ventricle are connected through a tricuspid valve. As the name suggests, it has 3 leaflets or cusps. On the other side, the left atrium and ventricle are connected through a bicuspid valve. The bicuspid valve is also called the mitral valve because of its resemblance to a bishop's 2-sided mitre or hat. The leaflets of these atrioventricular valves are connected to fibrous tissue called the chordae tendineae, which in turn are attached to papillary muscles. Contraction and relaxation of these muscles make the valves open and close. There are also valves at the opening of the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. These are called the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve, respectively. Because of their crescent moon shape, these 2 valves are also called semilunar valves. The characteristic double-up sound of the heartbeat is produced during the closing of the heart valves. The thickness of the walls of the 4 heart chambers varies with their functions. The walls of the atria are thinner than those of the ventricles, as the blood needs to be pumped into adjacent ventricles only. The left ventricle pumps blood a greater distance at higher pressure. Therefore, the wall of the left ventricle is thicker than that of the right ventricle. The sinoatrial node, atrioventricular node, bundle of HIS and Purkinje fibers represent the specialized cardiac tissue. These fibers are autoexcitable as they have the potential to generate electrical activity without any external stimuli. This makes the heart beat continuously.
But do you have any idea what's really going on in there, or what keeps your heart ticking as it should? Every day, your heart beats about 100,000 times, sending 2,000 gallons of blood surging through your body. Although it's no bigger than your fist, your heart has the mighty job of keeping the blood flowing through 60,000 miles of blood vessels that feed your organs and tissues. Food, water and oxygen are essential for the existence of human life. Blood transports all these substances through various channels called blood vessels. Blood vessels involves arteries, veins, capillaries. To keep the blood flowing throughout our body, we have a pumping system, and the heart is the pump, which is composed of muscle that pumps blood throughout the body, beating approximately 72 times per minute of our lives. The human heart has 4 chambers: the right atrium, the left atrium, the right ventricle, and the left ventricle. There are 4 valves in the heart. These valves are tricuspid valve, mitral valve, aortic valve, pulmonic valve. These valves are one-way valves. Now, you have seen the structure of the heart. Let us find out how it works. The blood becomes oxygen-rich by absorbing oxygen in the lungs. The function of the heart starts when oxygenated blood is carried from the lungs to the left atrium of the heart by means of the pulmonary veins. The left atrium relaxes, this blood is pumped into the heart. When the left atrium contracts, the left ventricle relaxes simultaneously. The left atrium pushes the blood into the left ventricle through the one-way valve. When the left ventricle contracts, the blood is pumped into the aorta, which carries oxygenated blood to the different parts of the body, except the lungs. Oxygenated blood reaches the different parts of the body through the blood vessels called the arteries. The arteries gets branched into capillaries, which then reaches to the different organs of the body. The blood then becomes deoxygenated, and the blood capillaries gets mixed and form thicker blood vessels called the veins. The veins carry deoxygenated blood to the heart. The blood vessels that carry deoxygenated blood to heart are known as the vena cava. The deoxygenated blood from different parts of body enters the upper right chamber of the heart, which is called the right atrium. The right atrium gets contracted, allowing the blood to flow into the right ventricle, which contracts with the expansion of the right atrium through the one-way valve. The right ventricle then contracts, pushing the blood into the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery carries the deoxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygenation. The lungs oxygenate the blood by exchanging of gases and flows back into the heart through the pulmonary vein, and starts the
of food, oxygen, and waste materials within the human body is done by blood. To keep this transport up and running all through our life, we need a pumping system. The pump that enables the movement of blood throughout the body is the human heart. human heart has 4 chambers known as the right atrium, the left atrium, right ventricle, and left ventricle. There are 4 valves in the heart. All these valves are one-way valves, which allow blood to flow in one direction only. Having known the structure of the heart, let's find out how it functions. Blood becomes oxygen-rich by absorbing oxygen in the lungs. The function of heart starts when oxygenated blood is carried from the lungs to the left atrium of the heart by means of the pulmonary vein. The left atrium relaxes when this blood is drawn into the heart. Now, the left atrium contracts and simultaneously the left ventricle relaxes. This pushes the blood into the left ventricle through the one-way valve. Next, it's the turn of the left ventricle to contract. When the left ventricle contracts, blood is pumped into the aorta, which carries oxygenated blood to different parts of the body, except the lungs. The oxygenated blood reaches different parts of the body through blood vessels called arteries. Arteries get branched into finer blood capillaries when they reach different organs. At places, they become only 1 cell thick. At such place, they transfer oxygen to the organ cells. In turn, the blood slowly becomes deoxygenated. The blood capillaries now together recombine and form thicker blood vessels called veins. Veins carry deoxygenated blood to the heart. The blood vessels which carry deoxygenated blood from body to heart are known as vena cava. Deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body enters the upper right chamber of the heart, called the right atrium, as it dilates. The right atrium then contracts, allowing blood to flow into the right ventricle, which contracts with the expansion of right atrium to receive the blood through the one-way valve. The right ventricle then contracts, pushing the blood into the pulmonary artery, which carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygenation.
It's the most important muscle in the body. It can beat more than 100,000 times a day, pumping about 2,000 gallons of blood through a 60,000-mile network of vessels in the body. The human heart is made up of 4 major chambers: the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle. The right side of the heart receives blood that is low in oxygen from veins all over the body. It then pumps the blood through the pulmonary arteries into the lungs, where it will become reoxygenated. The left side of the heart receives this oxygen-rich blood from the lungs. Then it pumps the blood through the aorta back out to the rest of the body through a complex network of arteries, arterioles, and capillaries. While blood is circulating through the body, it delivers oxygen and nutrients to tissue through the capillaries, and at the same time picks up carbon dioxide and other waste material. The veins return the deoxygenated blood to the right atrium, and the cycle begins again. The heart has 4 valves. Each valve is like a one-way door that keeps the blood in the heart flowing in the same direction. The valves are made up of 2 or 3 small but strong flaps of tissue called leaflets. Leaflets open to allow blood to flow through the valve and close to prevent blood from flowing backward. The opening and closing of the valves is controlled by blood pressure changes within each heart chamber. The tricuspid valve is positioned in the heart's right side, between the right atrium and right ventricle. The pulmonic valve separates the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery. The mitral valve is positioned in the heart's left side, between the left atrium and the left ventricle. and the aortic valve separates the left ventricle from the aorta. As blood circulates through the heart, some of the blood flows into a set of much smaller blood vessels that provide blood directly to the heart. These arteries, called coronary arteries, surround or crown the heart. This separate circulatory system, called coronary circulation, keeps the heart nourished and oxygenated. The two main branches of the aorta that nourish the heart are the right and left main coronary arteries. Coronary artery disease, which occurs when there is a buildup of cholesterol plaque, affects the arteries of this circulatory system and causes a decrease in blood flow to the heart muscle, resulting in possible damage to the heart or a heart attack. The beating of the heart, which is its rhythm, is regulated by electrical impulses generated by your heart muscle. These impulses begin in the sinoatrial node and cause your heart to contract. Sometimes the sinoatrial node is also referred to as your heart's natural pacemaker, since it keeps the heart rate constant and consistent. The impulses then travel to the atrioventricular node, where the signal is checked and then sent through the ventricles, which causes them to contract. Your heart rate can change based upon external conditions such as diet, exercise.
Tahukah Anda, setiap hari jantung kita memompa 70 kali semenit untuk menggerakkan 7.200 liter darah ke seluruh tubuh. Sistem peredaran darah kita sangat penting untuk mengantarkan ke 60 triliun sel dengan oksigen, air, nutrisi, hormon, dan sel darah putih. Pada masa yang sama, ia juga mengangkut sisa metabolisme keluar dari tubuh kita. Jika sistem peredaran darah ke otak terganggu, ia akan menyebabkan sakit kepala, pening-pening, daya ingat melemah, dan lebih lagi stroke. Setiap tahun 40.000 rakyat Malaysia mengidap stroke. Peredaran darah ke jantung yang terganggu akan menyebabkan sesak napas, cepat lelah, sakit dada, dan penyakit jantung koroner. Penyakit kardiovaskuler dianggap menyebabkan 7 daripada setiap 10 kematian di Malaysia menjelang tahun 2020, dan ia telah menjadi pembunuh nomor 1 di Amerika Serikat selama lebih dari 100 tahun. Sistem peredaran darah yang tidak baik akan menyebabkan kaki bengkak, kaki dan tangan dingin, vena varicose, dan tingkat seksual menurun. Sistem peredaran darah yang sehat meliputi jantung yang kuat untuk memompa darah ke seluruh peredaran darah, saluran darah yang fleksibel yang tidak tersumbat, dan darah yang lancar. Namun demikian, akibat peningkatan usia, gaya hidup yang tidak sehat seperti tekanan, merokok, kurang olahraga, dan makanan-makanan cepat saji, serta keadaan kesehatan yang tidak baik seperti obesitas, diabetes, hipertensi, akan menyebabkan penumpukan kolesterol, radikal bebas, dan homocysteine di dalam saluran darah yang akan menyebabkan darah menjadi pekat. Sesungguhnya, penumpukan kolesterol mulai dari umur 10 tahun. Apabila darah menjadi pekat, plak akan terkumpul dalam saluran darah. Jantung kita terpaksa memompa lebih kuat untuk mengalirkan darah melalui saluran yang sempit. Akibatnya, tekanan darah akan meningkat dan akhirnya merusak ke bagian-bagian lain saluran darah. Dalam jangka panjang, saluran darah akan bertambah rusak, mengeras, menyempit, dan kurang lentur. Oleh karena itu, kita memerlukan satu penyelesaian yang holistik untuk menjaga jantung, saluran darah, dan darah kita demi fungsi sistem